We've got to find some new music. We've got to find some new kind of music to play. And Al Porcino, who was this lead trumpeter, one of the great trumpet players in jazz, came from the swing era thing. He was playing standards. He didn't like it, but he was playing with it. So from the back of the bus, he said, if you're looking for new music, Stan, why don't you play swing? And everybody in the bus fell apart. They kept talking, and there was no answer to that. But he said, he never did get an answer on that. But it's not that Stan didn't like swing music, he just wanted to be different. If other bands were playing swing, he wanted something else. And his music lives on today. And I'll tell you another story quick about the City of Glass, which is not liked by even Stan fans. It was a trade-off. To get Kaplan did not want to record it. Bob Register's piece. Stan wanted his stuff to be heard, his Stan stuff to be heard. And the trade-off, as the story goes, and now we don't know if it's true or not, the trade-off was Stan doing a recording with Tex Ritter, which was a bomb. Stan didn't want to do it, and it's hard to find a copy. I tried to get a copy of it, and I guess it's a collector's item now, but he got Tex Ritter, the cowboy singer, John Ritter's dad, who did the TV series, and that was a trade-off for releasing City of Glass. Well, it was one of the worst sellers of Capitol Records, but Stan has no records. That's how that happened.
Stan obviously was just born with this in his head. Talk a little bit about your connections to that orchestra. You mentioned Buddy, and how you, because you're not just covering the music of Stan Kenton. You come from that part of the world. You come from Los Angeles. You know some of these people. Connect yourself.
My brother, who was 10 years older than me at the time, took me to the Rendezvous Ballroom. I don't know what the age of there, but he got me in, so I was 11 years old. And the Rendezvous Ballroom, and this was the first date of the St. Kitts Orchestra. It was some kind of holiday, either Memorial Weekend or 4th of July or something. And we were all out of school. And my brother took me with him and his friends to see the St. Kitts Orchestra. And it was so different. It was based on staccato sounds. And if you get some of the early CP record transcriptions, actually if you get the deck recorded by Stan, that's the sound he had. And he had a vocalist named Kay, and I don't know anything more about her. This was before Anita O'Day, or before Duke Christie, Chris Carter. And the band was so different, it just knocked me out. He had 3 trumpets only. I think the total amount of musicians was 14. And which, as years went on, expanded to 42 for the Innovations Orchestra, where he lost his shirt, pretty much like Grove. But the sound got me, and I became a fan. That was it. And the next time I saw him was when my folks who were dancing, not professional dancing, just dancing, took me with them to a place called the Casa Manana in Culver City. They belonged to an organization that had a dance band was hired. They're not known very well. Saw him again, and the band was even, they added another trumpet. The band was getting, at that time we were playing Ears and Beaver. He was released on the Capitol Records label. Then the third time I saw him was at the Hollywood Palladium, and he already had Jim Christie with him. And the band had been even longer built up. Even now we had 2 trombones, it was 4 trombones. And now there was 5 trumpets. So this was the full band at that time. And if you like Stan Kenton, really like, you're a fanatic. So if you think you're not, and you do love the Kenton's music, you're a fanatic, and I'm proud to be one. So that's where that all happened from. He lost the fans along the way when he got into his very introverted music, but I stayed with it, and a lot of us did, and a lot of it may not apply to the public, but he's left a legacy.
And tomorrow night, actually, just by way of information, tomorrow night's show is in the Scottish Rite Auditorium. It holds 600 people. There's only about 40 seats left. So it's going to be a dynamic, rich, full program. Music's going to be spectacular.
Guys, that?
Yeah. Talk about the guys. Stan Kenton had a lot of people coming in and out of the orchestra. Some stayed for just a couple of years. They couldn't take the road. So they and we're talking about some of the singers here.
A lot really because of the road. It was grueling. If you were part of the St. Kitts band, I wish I had the talent. I was too young, but I wish I'd had the talent to be part of that. I ultimately had that talent. But Buddy Childers joined at 16 unofficially and had to come back and finish school. And then Stan put him on a record as a lead trumpet player when he was about 17, almost 18. He stayed with the band for a long time. But the musicians would leave because of the grueling part of being on the road. And with a Kent band, it's not just playing, you would rehearse all through the afternoon. It's not just a couple hours rehearsal, you rehearse every day with the kind of music they had to play and still play a job at night, which was, at that time, standard was 4-hour jobs. Today it's pretty much 3 hours or less. Definitely union-wise, it was 4 hours for a dance. And because Stan he never cared for dances. He hated playing for dances. But the concession he worked with was that when he played a concert or a dance for people, he would say at the first part of it, almost all the dances, if you allow me to play our concert material, I promise you the best damn dance music you've ever heard. And that's what he did. And he gave you the best music. Dance-wise.
Talk about keeping a band together, your own experience. I mean, making phone calls, Yvonne deserves a great deal of credit. Well, we should probably give her a hand. Talk about, making calls to musicians, attracting a musician to the band. Over the years, your band has gone through a variety of configurations, but you've been really, and I know that consistency is a great deal of this, but you've been very, very focused on your band, and it has remained a name that we know and recognize. And talk about what it takes to create a band. Well, I mean, there aren't a lot of them in town.
Oh, of course, I wish I could say I had the dedication that Stan had, because if I did that, we wouldn't be just playing dance music. I have visions too, but I know you can't keep a band together today. You need an audience out there. And we have a great dance book, a fantastic dance book. With a lot of the Lenny Niehaus chart that he wrote for Stan, plus something he's written for us in our CDs. But you have to have a band with integrity. You have to have, especially a band that works together as a team. And it sounds corny, but do this one for the Gipper, the old sports thing. You can have great soloists in the band, have a bad rhythm section, and you have no band. And vice versa. Fortunately, I've been lucky with a lot of bands I've had. This band, we wouldn't even attempted, I would have attempted to do the Kitten tribute. But this band's an all-star band, they're all all-stars. Paul Maggio used to be the old band, came back in and lost 2 trumpet players. Lost them right after our recording session when we were getting booked for this thing. And we were already booked to do this with Don Lukoff, who talked about it doing the Kitten tribute. And losing 2 dynamic trumpet players scared me, so I called my old friend Paul Maggio back in, Matt Carr back in. And all these individuals are very dedicated musicians through the Portland area. So one works with 5 guys named Mo. He plays a completely different kind of music. And then
Dave Parker.
Dave Parker is a teacher
at University of Portland.
Right, and he teaches music, jazz music, and semi-classical band music. And he does a lot of arrangements for our band. But my key people all understand Kent music. You cannot play Kent music by sitting in front of it. Just say, here's some Stan Kent charts, sit down, play the music. No matter how good you are, you can be great readers, you're just going to play notes. It's a concept. I have to say this in the best terminology of the word. Stan Kent music is a cult. It's a cult music. You have to feel it, and then you can play it. And the people that Stan got were people recommended by other guys in the band that said, well, this one could be able to cut it. And he was fortunate to get all the guys that got in. Some of them couldn't take the road, and that's the reason why they left. Not so much the music, but because of the road, stuff like that, back to that again. And I've been very fortunate to have a very dedicated bunch of musicians, because there's no money in big bands today, anywhere. It's the economy, but our guys are all combo players, and they get jobs where they can. And when they come in to do this, it was a very dedicated rehearsal session for this. Not as many rehearsals as we wanted, but I'm happy with our last rehearsal, and it'll be heard tomorrow night in front of everybody. You can't lie about music. One thing about music, you cannot lie. The music comes out, it's there in front of you. You can't cheat on it. It either comes out of the horn or it's not there.
Talk about some of the horn players that you know you have information about in terms of Ferguson and in the Kenton band, and why that developed, because it's an intense. It feels to me almost like the equivalent of an electric guitar in jazz. It's intense. It's brass, and lots of them is really a statement.
In the case of Maynard Ferguson, he came on the scene and kind of spoiled it for all the trumpet players, because around that time, even with Kenton's band before that, things were written, a couple of things about the staff. And, I remember when I was at LACC and Perez Prado came here with the new sound, the Mambo sound, Maestro Perez Prado. And so he came to LACC to recruit musicians. Well, I went for the audition. I didn't make it. Everything written was written APA, which means an octave up. And then if you go an octave above that, fine. So you heard the early Perez Prado Mambo releases, Mambo number 5 and stuff that he brought to this country. Very few people from LACC that cut the book, but he did get recruits from Los Angeles City College. With Maynard, when he came on the scene, and Stan Kenton used him, drum players hated him, because everything started being written for him in this particular band and other bands. A lot of people don't know that Maynard also worked for the Jimmy Dorsey band, doing some pyrotechnics up above, and the Charlie Barnett band. And I think one of the major things to do with Charlie Barnett's band when I was still coming out of school was the thing, Jerome Kern. I think all the things were all written by Jerome Kern. It was released on a purple label, Capitol Records. For those of you that may not understand what 78s are, or somebody said that may know what 78 RPM.
Those doorstops?
Right, that's it. Those are definitely collector's items. And I know I went to Sears or I lived there and picked it up. I think the records were 35 cents for a 78. And it was Charlie Barnett's band with featuring Maynard Ferguson. Well, the story in that, the week it was released, was withdrawn a week later by the Jerome Kern estate, who said they would sue Capitol if it wasn't released. Well, it's been released, that was years ago, and it's been released in many issues on CD by Capitol. Maynard took all the things you are, took it to another level, and I guess the Jerome Kern estate didn't like. I thought it's fantastic. If you get a chance to get it, go to the Capitol label. It's the release now under the Charlie Barnett called the Capitol Sessions. It's on CD now, but they were able to tell Capitol they didn't want to release it. It's blazing Maynard at its very, very best, but trumpet players hated it because everything was starting to be written for Maynard's type of sound, and very few players could cut it. The Kenton band got that kind of let people in.
Just a couple more questions before we leave the big band, your band. How did you make the transition? What made you, first of all, what trumpeter, I think, that did you try to imitate over the years? And the second part, when and why did you make a transition from performing to creating a band? What made you create a band?
Let's go back to why I picked the trumpet. In the families, at my time, if you have a young son or pretty much a young son, well, they either want you to be a lawyer, a doctor, fireman, and kids want to be cops.
I don't think that's changed, actually.
I wanted to be a cop, actually. But what happened, I said we're non-professional dancers, we used to dance at this. At times they could get a babysitter for me or didn't trust me because I was pretty active. And so they would take me with them. At that time, fortunately, it's not too big now for kids. You could bring in a youngster if he came with parents. And the Hollywood Palladium was one such ballroom. Well, they took me to this time, and already I was a fan of Stan Kenton. Harry James was playing there. This is the guy I have to blame for causing me to really go into music. He stood there with his beautiful horn and played Flee to the Goon, Trumpet Blues, and all the great things that he did in the 40s. And his vocalist was a young lady by the name of Helen Forrest. But that wasn't the point. With Harry standing there, Billy told him, just blow that trumpet. And on the way home that night, I said to my dad, I'd like to play trumpet. And just like that. No father's going to put money out on a trumpet for a kid that may just play for a couple of weeks. But my uncle was second celloist with the Hollywood Bowl Symphony, which was one of the impressive symphonies of the time. Hollywood was a big thing. And he believed me. We went downtown L.A., which was loaded with hot shops. Got me a beat-up old Holt Cornet. He said, "Prove to your dad that you're serious." And it took me about a month or two. Proved to my dad. We went out and we got what I wanted, which was a Harry James model silver, which I still have to this day. I play another horn now, but that was the horn. So I got the Harry James model, and I took lessons, and that was it. Didn't care about leading a band, just wanted to be a sideman. But when I became a sideman, then you get the issue of, rather the domain of the leader of the band. Sometimes I think my guys think the same thing with me. But I was restricted to really, at that time, very heavy swing, which was swing. And I took solo parts, but you're restricted to do what the leader wants you to do.
So about what years are these? What year is this you're talking about? Restricted to swing.
Well,
you don't mind me asking.
swing was still hanging over into the late 40s. But the band started breaking up in the 50s. All the big bands were falling apart because of the economy. And I think Duke Ellington had the last band that was together, and then even he disbanded for a while. Harry disbanded his band. One of the big bands that kind of went as long as they could was the Woody Herman band, with the great herd from 45, 46, 47, 48, Bill Harris, Serge Chaloff, Stan Gus was in that band, Connie Cadoli, Shorty Rogers, who you could see had played with that particular band. But I wanted a swing band, but with more modern type swing arrangements. And so eventually I put together a teenage band, and then didn't do so well, and became a side band again. And then had a small group in California called the Swing Machine. So, but eventually, forces, the long story would take hours to tell you, brought me up here to Portland, which I didn't want to leave Hollywood at all. But something in the family involving my wife and her mother that was getting very ill, brought her up to Portland. I was still in Hollywood, and the changes happened. That definitely happened when we came up here, which was a bad point for me because in Hollywood, at that time, things never closed. I moved to Estacada, so let me tell you about Estacada. At 9 o'clock, things are locking up. In Hollywood, you go out at 2 in the morning, you got the place to go to see jam sessions. I mean, it was a different era. Shelly Manne had this club at Sunset Boulevard, in Coinga, right below Hollywood Boulevard. You go to 12. They closed at that time because of the liquor law. They would lock up at 1 o'clock. And if you're so lucky and you want to stay, musicians coming from elsewhere, getting offered jobs, would come in there and they would jam to 4 or 5 in the morning. So can you imagine the life for a young guy there? It was wonderful. So coming up here to Portland and Estacada, my bags were packed for a good year. I was ready to go back there. But then a call came out from KMHC